We are Marc and Paulette. We moved to Mexico about nearly 5 years ago. We originally came from the Sacramento, California area, and we just went through the entire process of moving to Mexico, including getting residency and all of that stuff. So when we first came to Mexico, we moved to Morelia, and we were there for about a year. Morelia is a beautiful city, but we always knew that we were going to move on from there, so we never really thought of it as a permanent home.
Right. It was our starting point.
We also had to go back to the U.S. to pick up some more of the stuff in our car that we had left behind. We couldn't get moved the first time. So we were driving through and we stopped in San Luis.
Right.
And something just said that we needed to, check that area out a little bit more. But we went on to the U.S., got another carload of our stuff to bring back. And then we came back through and stopped in San Luis again and spent a few more days there. And then from that point, we knew that we were that San Luis was going to be our next stop.
We went to Spain, Portugal, and then we went to Ecuador twice. And we thought it might be Ecuador. And then the following year, we decided to come to Mexico. And we just fell in love with Mexico, the people, the culture, and the beauty. And so we said, that's it for us. That's where we're going. Just checked all the boxes.
Yeah. There's just a lot of qualities about it that you can't really see, until you've been here to experience it. And, there was just a draw there that was so much more than any of the other countries that we visited.
Absolutely. I think for us, coming to Mexico, we felt the warmth of the people more so than when we went to Spain, Portugal, and Ecuador. We really felt, more welcomed here. And I think that really stole our heart. We really liked what we saw. Yeah,
there's a thing here. It's like once you get to know a Mexican family, in some way you become part of their larger extended family. And then you get invited to all of the family things, whereas in the U.S., honestly, that typically does not happen.
No.
I always say that, Mexico is not a type A personality. I mean, things will get done, but it's not probably as automated as you would find in the U.S. or anything like that. You just have to get used to the pace of things and how they happen here.
And he thought I was going to have a hard time because I am a type A personality. And he thought, oh, how's this going to work? But it worked out fine. I mean, a few things that we've run into is kind of, ruffled my feathers. But, you just have to be accepting and know that it's just a different culture and things work a little bit different.
Yeah. Sometimes we just throw up our hands and say, it's Mexico.
Yeah.
Dealing with the bureaucracy in Mexico, it can be difficult. It's, like when you go to, set up like EAMS for your insurance. You go there, they give you some paperwork. You can't pay there. You have to go to a bank down the street and make a payment into their account and come back.
With the receipt.
With the receipt.
Show it to them. That was a little bit different than the U.S. But again, we're in Mexico, so got to go with the flow.
Don't come here expecting you're going to change things in Mexico because it's just not going to happen. And in the end, I think you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So just roll with it.
When we bought a Mexican car, in the United States, it can be in both of our names. It can be either or can sell the car. Here in Mexico, it could only be in one name. So then we put it in my name. And then the situation was that I had to show my own bank account, which I did not have. So I had to open my own bank account and then take proof back now that I held my own bank account. And so that was a little different.
Keep in mind, we had a joint bank account, but because hers was not the first name on the account, they didn't even consider it.
Right. Yeah, the first time we came to Mexico, we came through Arizona, right? Through Nogales.
Yep.
And that was fine. We didn't know what to expect. Roads were a little bumpy in some areas, large potholes. We found out quickly how to drive on the highway because it works out pretty well. If there's a big truck that's in front of you and they're telling you that you can pass, they'll turn on their blinker, which this doesn't happen in the United States. And at first, it took us a little bit to catch on. Our first drive into Mexico was fine. Our second drive into Mexico, when we stopped at immigration and we got our passport stamped, at that point, we were leaving the office and we noticed all these cars were lined up and we couldn't figure out why. So we asked somebody, what's going on here? And they said that there had been a report that there were some people that were pulling people over and robbing them. So you could drive out on your own if you preferred to, or you could wait for a police escort. And so that's what we did. We decided to wait, and it worked really well, actually. There was like 4 or 5 police cars, one in front, by the side, behind. We just went, there was probably, 25 cars, I'd say?
Probably,
Yeah, about 25 cars that were lined up, and it just went very smoothly. They just went through all the lights. One of the police cars blocked that intersection and everybody just rolled right through it until we got to the highway.
And I do want to bring up one other thing. The very first time we crossed the border, we had our car packed full of stuff, crossing in Nogales. And sure enough, you can get a red light or a green light. Green light means you get to go through. Red light means you stop.
At the border
we
crossing.
got red lighted. And so they wanted to look through our stuff. We had a bunch of our clothing and stuff in those space saver bags
Those
that you
vacuum
the air out and it collapses them. Well, they wanted to look in some of those bags. Ultimately, we made 3 trips back to the U.S. to pick up more stuff that we had in store.
Because I couldn't part with things. It was me. It was things I wasn't sure that I could get here in Mexico. And then, of course, once I was here, I realized I could get all that stuff. It might be a little bit more expensive, but I could get it all.
And in my case, I brought clothing too, because I'm a taller, bigger guy.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to
And
find
shoes
here, because I wear a size 15 shoe, which is like a size 32 in Mexico. And I can't find them in shoe stores, but I can order them online through Amazon Mexico.
True.
In my case, it was really just a lot of clothing.
Yeah. And then again, the personal, sentimental things that meant a lot to me.
Our process for finding a house, we looked at a few different places. We looked at Facebook Marketplace. We contacted people. We looked at a total of 32 houses. We dealt with a bunch of different real estate agents at first. But we didn't really know if they were real estate agents or not. Sometimes they would show up with their entire family. They would never give us the location of the house until right before we had to leave.
Which I thought was really interesting.
Right. And we would always have to meet them somewhere. They would never come and pick us up. And so that was a struggle at times. But anyway, we would meet with the agents or friends of the family or whoever they might have been to look at the houses. Finally, we did, through a friend of ours, get hooked up with a real estate agent who did really more like a real estate agent in the U.S. would do. She would come and pick us up at our apartment, take us around to the different places that we were interested in looking at. She would find some other places, based on our criteria that we might like. And then one day we wound up here driving around looking at some houses where we live here in this community. And we called on one house that was a street over, and he said, no, that's too much money for what they're looking, but I have this other house. So we came over here and we looked through the house and it met most of our criteria. Number one, Paulette's criteria was having an open kitchen area, living room area. And I wanted a view if I wasn't going to get a yard of any kind, which is pretty difficult in Mexico. I wanted a view, so I got a rooftop patio.
Right. One thing that I wanted to say, we were also considering the fact of buying a lot in a community and then building.
Yeah.
But we looked at, I think, 2 or 3 properties like that, and then we decided it'd be easier to buy a house that was already built.
We worked with our real estate agent. We struck up a deal with the contractor that built the house.
Mhm.
And then from there, we selected a notario. Selecting a notario is important for the buyer because you can pay anywhere from 3% to 10% in notario fees. The one that we had was a little bit over 3, but we've had friends in Querétaro that were nearly 10% of the cost of the house. So as you can see, the notario fees were key.
And the buyer can pick the notario.
Yeah.
You don't have to go with, it's not like set, like you're going to go to this notario. You have the opportunity to pick who you want to go to.
And so we did that. And another friend of mine, Alan, knew of a notario that he had worked with before. And they also spoke English in the office, which helped us. And so we met the contractor at the notario. We signed some paperwork. We eventually had to be approved by the government of Mexico to purchase a property. We each had to qualify.
Yeah.
Paulette,
we qualified separately. I qualified first, and then about a week later, Mark got his approval.
Yeah. And that process took about a month. So once that process happened, we signed the paperwork, and then we transferred some of the money for the sale of the house. And then on completion of the notario stuff, we transferred the rest of the money to buy the house.
I think it took about 2 months total.
The lady that worked at the notario was really helpful. She spoke English, and she basically highlighted the parts for us in English that she was going through.
The real estate's daughter, she spoke English too. So she was bilingual, and she went through the contract with us too. So at that point, we felt pretty comfortable.
And realized that the notario is appointed by the state. He's an attorney, so he has to be in good standing. We had no reason to doubt anything he was telling us, and so we were pretty comfortable with that. For those that don't know, the notario here is basically the equivalent of an escrow company in the United States.
So we ended up purchasing in an area called, the Colonia is called Via Magna. And it's, I'd say, about 15 minutes to the downtown area from here.
Yeah.
So, and then we have a main street that's called the Periferical that divides us. And so the good thing about living here is you can take the local bus into town, which is great. The neighborhood is very friendly. You can take Uber, you can take a taxi, you can drive, whatever works for you. The people here are very friendly, very welcoming.
We're friends with our neighbors. A lot of the people that live here work in the medical profession.
A lot of them speak English too.
Yeah, although we try to speak Spanish with them, and
it focuses back to English, and next thing we know, our Spanish learning is out the door and everything's in English. So, although I think Mark and I are the only gringos in our neighborhood, which is fine for us, we don't mind. We love living in this community.
This house that we lived in now, wasn't really what we were looking for. I mean, it had a more like
modern,
contemporary, modern feel than we think of when we think of a Spanish house.
Right, I wanted the arches in the doorway. I wanted that whole Mexican style, but we didn't buy that. We ended up buying something more modern and bringing in Mexico to our modern-looking house.
I don't know that I feel that this area is more westernized or not.
I don't know.
It's interesting because the people, this is probably what most people would consider a working professional middle-class neighborhood. You know, most of the people that we know still work, and they're either doctors or lawyers and
accountants, different things, teachers, whole variety.
So our monthly expenses for groceries, it's about $600 US.
I do a lot of cooking at home. We don't eat out that much, maybe twice a week. And on that, I would say we probably spend, what would you guess, a month on eating?
Oh, probably 150 to 200 a month.
Yeah. Utilities, our electric is called CFE, and that's billed every 2 months.
Yeah, we're probably at about.
But still, that's reasonable compared to the US. And again, remember, we don't have any air conditioning. We don't have any heating system. So we have fans in the house. We have 5 fans throughout our house. And that's our cooling system pretty much when it gets warm. So I don't know, but that's increased. Our gas is propane, and we pay the propane about every 6 months, huh?
Yeah.
And what is that about?
Probably about $90 US every 6 months.
Yeah. And I use a stove. I use the oven. I don't know.
Our water heater's gas too.
Yeah, our water heater's gas. So, and what else? And then when we first moved in, we weren't getting charged water. There was no water meters hooked up to any of the properties here in this community. So everybody that lived here for 12 years got their water for free all that time. And now we're getting billed, what, about $12 every 2 months?
12 or 13 US dollars.
Yeah, so they're
pesos.
doing that right now until they install the water meter. That was March, April, May, June, July, August. I don't know when they're going to hook it up. I think that's it.
So where we live, the community did not make any provision for fiber optic cabling. Everywhere else in the city that's available, they run it above ground and attach it to poles and stuff like that. Here, we don't have any above ground poles, and they didn't make any provision really for running the fiber optic cabling underground. Our only choice for internet service was just to get satellite internet of some kind, and we had one carrier, but their service was pretty slow, and I needed something because we upload YouTube videos all the time, so I went with Starlink, and their service is really good. Cost me 1,100 pesos a month.
Which is about $60.
Yeah.
It ranges between $60 and $65.
Depending on the dollar to
Right.
peso conversion rate at
Right,
that time.
right. But it works fantastic. And then you bought another router or something?
Yeah, I bought a mesh router because Wi-Fi signals don't travel well through houses basically made of cement. So there was some expense there. And the equipment ran me 8,400 pesos for the equipment, and it's a self-install. Our experience with medical care here in Mexico, when we first got here, we enrolled in the EAMS program, which is the public social medical system. But as a foreigner, you can buy into it, which is what we did. You have to go to the EAMS office. They give you some tests and stuff, and then you have to pay, and then
I think you have to pay first.
You have to pay first.
You have to pay first. Then from there, then they'll schedule a physical for you, let you know whether you have it. But at that point, they can still deny you after you've paid your money.
And keep your money.
And keep your money and deny you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a, what?
But that did not happen with us.
No.
We were actually enrolled in EAMS for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't really use it at all.
We didn't.
So then we went the private insurance route, and that turned out to be pretty expensive, I think, by Mexico standards.
That was like $4,800
US.
$4,800, yeah, US for 2 of us for the year. And that only covered emergency situations. A car accident, a broken leg, an emergency appendicitis, something serious like that.
But you had some things that should have been covered,
right?
And they still didn't reimburse. Yeah.
So when it came time to renew, we just dropped them because that was a bad experience.
Yeah.
And so now we're basically winging it. We're not doing anything. We're just kind of paying as we go. And we don't go that often. I mean, we're pretty healthy, I think. So we really don't go that often. Before we got the private insurance and we didn't have IMSS, we didn't renew on the 3rd year. Mark had to have surgery here, and he went into a clinic and he had prostate surgery for an overnight stay, me to stay in the hospital, surgeon fee, anesthesia, IVs, everything. It was about $1,900 US out the door, which was incredible. And we find that the medical here in Mexico, for us, our experience is way better than it was in the US.
I mean, here, if you go into a doctor and they see something, they'll, maybe it's not their specialty, but they will refer you to someone else, and they will set that up for you. And that usually happens pretty quickly. It's not like in the US where they refer you to someone, and then it's 2 months before you can get
Right.
to
And
see
is
them.
it in network? Is it out of network? Is
Yeah.
there a higher fee? It's kind of like this roller coaster game that you play. And it could take weeks. Here in Mexico, it's not like that.
Yeah. If you have other health concerns, you can go see a doctor, see me for
which
50
we've
pesos or whatever.
done. We did that when we were in Morelia. We would just see the doctor that was attached to the pharmacy. It was very reasonable. And the doctor, I'm telling you, one thing here in Mexico is the doctors spend time with you. Our experience, it was like they were on the clock. It was like 10 minutes, like they're in and out. Here, no. They'll spend 45 minutes with you, an hour, whatever. And the care, I think, is incredible here in Mexico. I can't say enough about it.
Getting a bank account in Mexico was an absolute nightmare for us. We went to one bank. They opened an account for us. However, over the period of about 6 months, they closed it 4 times. So we moved on from that bank. We went to try to get a bank account at another bank, and they signed us all up but wouldn't take a deposit yet. And so we had to wait for them. They said wait 5 days, and then nothing happened. 10 days, they still hadn't done anything. So we just kind of let that one go. And then we went to another bank, and they would not recognize our CURP number, even though everyone else does.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. They said it wouldn't register in their system. And we showed in the paperwork, they put in the right number. It was crazy. It didn't make any sense.
So then after that, we went to the bank that we currently have, Intercam Bank, and we've been very happy with them. Again, it takes a day or two. Once you sign up, you don't deposit right away. They have to complete paperwork on their end and open your account, and then you can go back a day or two later and deposit money. And that's actually worked pretty well.
Really good customer service. They send us notices immediately, like our banks did in the state. As soon as we make a purchase, we get an email from them. We do online bank statements and stuff like that. It's wonderful. And if there's any kind of a problem, we go in there. We do also online bank paying for like CFE bill. Yeah. So it works out really well for us. We're very pleased with the bank.
As far as the exchange rate, we actually use Wise. We transfer money from our bank account in South Dakota into our Wise account, and it tells us what the exchange rate is going to be before we have it converted to pesos. And then from there, they charge us a pretty nominal fee to, send the money into our Intercam account.
So my advice that I would give to anybody moving to Mexico is leave your attitude at the border, okay? Don't try to change Mexico to make it where you came from, because it's Mexico. They have their own way of doing things. They have their own culture. Embrace Mexico and just learn about their culture, learn about their history, learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know that so many people told us when we were crossing the border, you're going to be killed. The cartel's going to kill you. All this stuff. We're like, what are you talking about? We've been here for 5 years and we've never felt unsafe in Mexico at all. And I mean, we would walk home at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and we never felt like there was somebody around us or anything like that. I will say one time, when we were in Mexico City, remember, it was late at night? Because I didn't want to pay to take a taxi because I thought they were charging me way too much. So I thought, well, the hotel doesn't look like it's that far. So we got totally turned around. It was at night, and I tell you, rats were outside. I was seeing some shady characters. We were pushing our luggage with my backpack on and stuff. And that was the only time, I will say, but that was my stupidity. I learned my lesson. I will never do that again. It was uncomfortable. That was the only time, though, in 5 years.
But that was our doing.
That was our doing. Yeah. That's right. That was
we put ourselves in that position, and we should not have.
Right.
You know, the important thing, like anywhere in the world, always be aware of your surroundings and your environment and the activities that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I would say if you're considering Mexico, be open to it. Don't be afraid. Don't listen to what the news is telling you. Can bad things happen? Of course it can. Can you be at the wrong place at the wrong time? Of course you can, but that can happen anywhere in the world.
Just come with an open mind and just be prepared to experience the culture and the environment and just take it all in. Don't have any preconceived notions about what it is going to be or should be, because I don't think you're doing Mexico any justice with that sort of attitude about it. Just come here and experience it and decide if that experience is for you, or maybe, within Mexico, you can go to a lot of different cities and
There's 32 states.
They all have their different sort of personalities and stuff. And you can say, yeah, Mexico's for me, but maybe not this place.
If you're considering Mexico, I say come for a week or a month or whatever, embrace it, see how you feel. If for some reason Mexico isn't for you, that's okay too. It's not for everybody.
We'd like to thank you for taking the time to check out us on this video. And we'd also like to thank Mexico Relocation Guide for coming here and talking to us and interviewing us. We certainly appreciate that. And if you'd like, hopefully you'd also check out our YouTube channel called The Two Travelers in Mexico.